Wolf, the former acting Secretary of Homeland Security under President Trump. Good to see you as always. You spent a number of years in charge of the area I'm in right now. What have we missed in our reporting so far?
Well, I think it's very good reporting. I think what I really understood when I looked into the video at the top of the segment was the stress that the Border Patrol officials, the men and women there trying to do that job every day are under, and that's on a good day. And on top of that, you have a crisis that they're trying to deal with. And I think it becomes very hard. So what we tried to do in the Trump administration is we listened to the operators. What did they need to do their job better? They told us, one, they needed an effective border wall system for that impedance and denial so that they could redeploy assets elsewhere. We gave them that. And then they talked about the asylum system and the flood of folks coming across that border claiming asylum. We know they don't qualify. And so we went to work on that issue, came up with the Remain in Mexico program, or the migrant protection protocols. It works. It was effective. We saw border apprehensions number decrease. We saw those that needing asylum getting that protection, those protections quicker. And we saw that the administration at the onset decided to cancel both of these programs, not because they did any type of analysis and that they were ineffective, but because they were simply done under the Trump administration. And the result is the crisis that we see today.
We talk about the crisis that we see today, but as you listen to the cable news discussion of it, on one side you have the idea of a closed border, or so it's described as that. On the other side, people describe it as an open border policy. Is there a way to have both a secure border and then also provide refuge for the 7 and 8 and 9-year-old kids that I saw who were sent up by their parents and smugglers paid $10,000 or $15,000 to bring them to the United States?
Well, absolutely. And that's what our system is all about, making sure that we both protect the border, but that we provide protections to those that truly qualify for asylum. But in order to do that, you can't simply rest on the policies of the past and the catch and release program that the current administration will have you believe is the right way to do it. You must root out that fraud in the asylum system. You must get that 90% that never qualify for asylum out of the system so that you can focus on the 10% that truly need the protections of our laws and making sure that they get that so that they can stay here in the U.S. And so that's, again, what the Migrant Protection Protocols, the Remain in Mexico program was about. It was effective. They did away with that. And then we've gone back to that catch and release to where individuals that need asylum protection today, the 8-year-old or their mother or their father, can't get those protections until years from now because you have thousands and even millions of folks in that system that are overwhelming that system. The system was never built to operate in this manner, and you need policy and programs that root out that fraud. We had that under the Trump administration. Like I said, they've gone back to a failed catch and release program.
Yeah, certainly the people down here, both with the Texas Department of Public Safety and then also the Border Patrol we've talked to, say that catch and release system is one of the reasons we're just seeing these huge numbers, 200,000 people, the population of Little Rock, Arkansas, every month. It's certainly got to be encouraging to groups, the Haitians, for example, that were let out. They're calling their friends back down in South America. We understand 4,000 more Haitians are on their way. The question, though, is really how much do we know about the people who are coming in? Because it's easy to gloss over and say, oh, 4,000 Haitians, they're here for a better life. Fine. This picture got passed to me by a law enforcement source who says they found somebody near where the Haitians were coming across who was on the FBI terror watch list. It's got to just be dumb luck at some point that you find this person. And at the same time, I'm hearing that for every one person that comes over, 2 or 3 to get through. So are we to believe that 2 or 3 people on the terror watch list got through for this guy having been caught?
Well, I think that's right. I mean, we talk about 200,000 illegal apprehensions in the month of July and August. So if you have that many number of folks being illegally apprehended, you're probably looking at another 50 to 60,000 what we call gotaways. These are individuals that never come into contact with Border Patrol. And so those are the most concerning. We don't know who they are. We don't have the chance to interview them, to biographically look at who they are. And those are the individuals that can really pay the cartels the most amount of money to make sure that they don't cross cross in a place that is patrolled by Border Patrol. So those are actually the most concerning ones. But I would point back to comments by the chief of the U.S. Border Patrol who recently retired, and he said that there is a national security crisis going on at that border today. It's not just about families, and it's not just about minors seeking refugee or asylum status. This is about criminals. This is about potential terrorists and other very bad actors coming across that border every single day. And I certainly agree with the former chief of the Border Patrol.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we certainly saw it, and certainly in terms of the number of dollars involved for the cartels is just incredible. It tells you why they have so much firepower to protect themselves. Great seeing you as always. Thanks for the insight.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
There's miles.